objectives of cloud computing, the concepts, types of cloud computing, up until the cloud computing services, and then the question and answer session. So that's exactly what we'll be looking at today. So, like I said that we've heard of the word cloud computing before. Some of us were yet to understand what they mean. Some of us do understand what they mean. Some of us are currently working with cloud computing. So, well, let's look at what exactly cloud computing is. Let's look at the definition, and then from there we'll be able to dive deep into the word cloud computing. So, cloud computing is the use of a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to do what? To store, to manage, and process data rather than a local server. Let me read that again. Cloud computing is the use of a network of remote servers hosted what? On the internet to store, manage, and process what? Data rather than a local server. Now that this looks like a combination of plenty English words that maybe needs to be broken down, for somebody that have no idea what it is. So all of this plenty English here, what exactly is saying about that cloud computing is just using computing resources over the internet. And what do we even mean by using computing resources over the internet? For instance, quite a lot of us here work with servers. Quite a lot of us work with servers, work with database, we have we store a lot of our data as well. So layman's term, I'm using a server. So rather than using that server locally, I can make use of that server over the internet. That's just layman terms. 5-year-old child and trying to understand what exactly it is. So I'm renting the server over the internet, perhaps maybe from a particular organization that does that business of renting out servers. So I rent my server from them and I use the server to do whatever I want to do and I pay for it. So that's the concept of cloud computing, being able to use these things over the internet. So, but without the internet, you can't use them. So using all of these things over the internet, that's exactly what the concept of cloud computing is. And this came about where, before the concept of cloud computing came about, actually people were, organizations used to have all of the infrastructures, their servers, each and everything locally. So they use everything locally. But over time, they observed and they realized that it wasn't such an easy thing to be using all of these things locally, in the sense that first and foremost, you have to pay for, getting all of these infrastructures on ground to use them. It costs a lot of money. You have to maintain these infrastructures. You have to pay for the people who are going to be maintaining it as well. So, the cost is so much. So because the cost is so much, and then at a point, some persons felt that, okay, rather than doing all of these things, we can do these things and then give it out for people to be able to use it and pay as they use it. So that's exactly what cloud computing is. Just like I said, this definition here is telling us what a use of a network or remote servers hosted on the internet to store, manage, and process data rather than a local server. So rather than me having my server locally, I can just go on the internet, get the server on the internet from a particular organization, pay for it within the period of time I'm going to use it, and use it, pay for it, and get my job done. So that's the concept of cloud computing. So why cloud computing? Why are we using cloud computing? I think that's part of what I just explained briefly. Now we are going to be saying, okay, we see to how can I get this thing off this place? So from here. Why cloud computing? Why? That's part of what I just explained. Now we are going to say. Sorry, it's something I'm trying to get away from the screen here. I'm finding it difficult to be able to do that. So, okay, why cloud computing? Okay, so we have two let me say cartoon images here that are going to give us a description of some of these things. So here's somebody on the left to the left that is saying, okay, hi, I'm about to start a company. Can you list down the resources I need to set up on-premise infrastructure? Now, if you look at the images here, you see two things. There's an image here that is telling you something about on-premise. There's something here telling you about cloud computing. If you look at it, there's a difference. One of the biggest differences here is this. The on-premise is having what? It's having so many things together. I mean, so many equipment together. And then the cloud computing is having just few equipment. So look at it very well. The on-premise is doing what? It's having so many equipment. And if you remember what I just said before now, I said that when we talk about on-premise, that before that I said organizations used to have all of these infrastructures. They acquire all these infrastructures, put them to work. They get their server, they use their servers locally and all of that. So I remember what I said. It costs a whole lot to be able to do that. Cost of maintenance is there. You pay for the people who are going to be maintaining it, and a whole lot of that. So that's exactly the concept of on-premise. Before people came up with the concept that, okay, rather than doing all of this, why not just do it all over the internet and then pay for it. So that is what brought about cloud computing. So that's exactly what this particular slide is talking about. So then let's move on-premise cloud computing. I think I'm just going to read through this because I've kind of I've given us an idea of what it is. Okay, on-premise, higher pay, less scalability, allow huge space for servers, less chance of data recovery, lack of flexibility, less collaboration, longer implementation time. Now we're looking at the difference actually between these two guys and the benefits they have. Then we're looking at cloud computing, pay for what you use. And when we say pay for what you use, what are we looking at? So scale up and down. Scale up and down. What does scale up and down means? I'm using a particular okay, let me use DSTV for instance. Maybe I subscribe to a particular package on DSTV, and at some point I feel like, okay, I think I'm not getting. I want to watch programs, and I want to watch programs, and those programs are not currently on the bouquet I am subscribed to. So in order for me to get access to those programs, what will I do? I have to do what? I have to scale up. I have to, pay more so that I can move to the next bouquet that will be able to give me access to those programs. So if I do pay for that, what happens? I get access to those programs. I can watch those programs. And if I watch those programs and maybe at some point I feel like, okay, I don't think I want to continue with all of these programs. Let me go back to the bouquet where I was previously before that. So that's exactly the concept of scaling up and down. If you want to use more resources, you pay for it and you move up. So when you pay up, so it's not as if you're going to be at that level forever. No, if you want to come scale down because perhaps maybe you don't want to consume so much resources and you just need to pay a little amount of money, so you do that to scale down. So no server space is required. Disaster recovery, high flexibility, collaborate from widespread and rapid implementation time. So that's actually the difference between on-premise and cloud computing as well. So the cloud is having a measurable impact on businesses, definitely. So we're just looking at this is just going to be telling us about impact of cloud computing on businesses. Number one, average improvement in time to market, average increase in company growth, average increase in process efficiency, average reduction in operational costs, average reduction in spending, average reduction in maintenance costs. Now, let's not forget, I said this while I started, that when you're using an on-premise, that all of these infrastructures, aside from the fact that you bought all of those infrastructures, don't forget, you're paying for maintenance of these things. So you're paying, and all of this maintenance, all these things you are paying are part of your operational costs. A part of the operational costs, and then they are part of your overhead as well. So maybe at the end of your maybe the business calendar, the business year, when you're doing your checks, you're doing your profits and loss accounts. So you're looking at it that at the end of the day, you're having so much expenses. The expenditure is quite high, and this thing is part of what consumes a lot of your expenditure. So that is the thing that on-premise does. But what cloud has been able to do over time is impact on businesses is this. That's helped to reduce that operational costs. I don't have those infrastructures on ground. I don't have them, so I don't need to incur that cost. That cost is a whole lot, so I don't incur those costs because I do not have them on ground. It has reduced, my spending on that. Same thing as well as reduced maintenance costs as well. And then my process efficiency is quite faster. And when you have all of these things tidied up as well, one of the things it does is that it helps you in the market. It helps you to be able to, maybe okay, it helps you to be able to push your product to the market as fast as possible. So that's exactly one of the impact of cloud computing in businesses. Now, objectives of cloud computing: elasticity, ability to scale virtual machines, resources up or down. I think I've explained that using DSTV as a case study. Even DSTV might not be the complete, might not be the exact kind of example you would want to use, but then at least it gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Then on-demand usage, ability to do what? To add or delay computing power, your CPU, your memory and storage according to what? According to demand. Then pay per use, I already said that I pay for only what you use. Let me get these things out so that you need to see what I can. Okay, let me just move ahead. Okay, benefits of cloud computing. Scalability. I think I already gave an idea of what that is. Ability to scale up your capacity and then scale down depending on what you need per time. Then cost, it eliminates the expense of buying computer hardware and software. Remember, I said that as well, that all of those infrastructures that you're going to be buying, all of those infrastructures you're going to be putting in place, that it eliminates that expense already. So instead of me trying to, just imagine right now that that I am working, as DevOps engineer in Bingcom. Just imagine I do not have access to cloud computing resources over the internet. Just imagine I do not have access, or yeah, just imagine I do not have access. Okay, let's even put aside that I work with Bingcom. Just imagine that maybe as a DevOps engineer, maybe I'm just working on my own, or I am freelancing, so to speak, and I do not have access to computing resources over the internet. What would I do? So that actually means that I have to go start acquiring all of these infrastructures to set up my own data center and do all of these things. So these things are just going to be very, very the cost implication of that on me will be quite much. So now that is one of the things that happens. It eliminates cost, then speed. Vast amount of computing resources can be provisioned in minutes. I'm sure we all know that. For some of us, that provision servers maybe on AWS, on Azure, on GCP, for instance. If you look at it, maybe I'm sure quite a lot of us may used to AWS. I'm sure to provision a server on AWS doesn't take you long. Within a couple of minutes, you are done with that. And then, so that's the thing, speed, be able to provision your resources quite fast, and accessibility. So accessing your data is quite fast. Just so long as you have a good internet, accessing your data is very fast. Then security as well, with cloud, your data is in a centralized secure location. So that is security has been taken care of. So now this is we're looking at, these are cloud providers here. We're looking at cloud providers there. Just remember what I said initially, that what cloud computing is. I'm renting all of these resources and I'm using them over the internet. So if I'm renting those resources, what it means is that obviously there are companies who are renting out those resources. There are companies who have those resources. There are companies who have procured all of those infrastructures and they are renting them out. They've procured all of those infrastructures. They are maintaining them. They are ensuring everything is perfect. So, and I need to rent from them so I can do what? I can provision, I can use up my resources to be able to do what I want to do. So if I'm renting them, what it means is that there are organizations out there who are pretty doing this job of renting out all of those resources. So that's exactly what we mean by cloud providers. So what are the cloud providers we have? I think we have the Google Cloud, we have the AWS, we have the Microsoft Azure. However, the three most popular of the cloud providers are the AWS, Microsoft Azure, as well as Google Cloud. So these are the three most popular cloud providers. Now, that doesn't really mean that those are all the cloud providers we have. We'll still have the IBM Cloud, then the Digital Ocean, as well as the VM Cloud Verified. I think there are still a couple of a few others as well that are coming up. So, however, but these are the ones that at the tip of your finger, you can always get, and these are more like the most popular set of cloud providers. Now, this about big concept. Oh God, there's something here that I need to get out. Get this out of the way. Okay, the big concepts. Yeah, the big concepts. So looking at the service models, the deployment models, as well as the characteristics as well. So these are what we're looking at going forward. So cloud computing characteristics, common characteristics, essential characteristics. Then common characteristics, resilient computing, service orientation, virtualization, low cost software, massive scale, advanced security, homogeneity, and geographic distribution. Now, in the course of my explanation, I believe I've been able to speak on a few things from this. Then essential characteristics, then on-demand self-service, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, broad network access. So um, this um, this these organizations have a broad network access. You know, they've got data centers in a whole lot of regions. They've got data centers not just in few zones. They have data centers in a lot of regions. So which means that even if I'm in far away Asia, because most of these big cloud providers, they already have data centers in most of all of these regions. So I'm finding it's while I'm in any of those regions, I can do everything I want to do. Aside from even accessing those resources as well, you know, um, I can get my application up and running regardless of where I am. So that's one of the characteristics. They've got broad network access and on-demand self-service. On-demand self-service. What on-demand self-service is talking about is that I can just wake up in the middle of the night now, and then I can go on AWS and get resources I wanted to get and then pay for it and then use them. So it's self-service. I don't necessarily need any staff of Amazon to be able to help me sort out help me to sort out or provision the resources. No, I can actually do that on my own. So it's an on-demand self-service. Let's move on. So of cloud, types of cloud computing, types of cloud computing. So now we're talking about types of cloud computing. We're looking at it from two different perspectives: the deployment model and the service model. The deployment model, then the service model. Under the deployment model, we have the public cloud, we have the hybrid cloud, we have the private cloud. Then under the service model, we have the IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, the software as a service. So we're looking into this one after the other. Now, the deployment model. So these graphics will be able to help us explain what the deployment model is. Now, if you look at the images on this slide, there is a bus, there's a car, and there's a taxi. There's a bus, there's a car that's only your own car, and there's a taxi. Now, without looking at it deeply, when you see a bus like that, what comes to mind first is that bus perhaps is a public bus. Okay, let's say you see a public bus. What comes to your mind first? That this bus is a public bus. And a public bus, what does it do? It conveys people. It conveys commuters from one spot to the other. That's what a public bus does. So that public bus, I do not own the public bus. All I need to do is just step out, right? Board a bus, pay for it, and then the bus takes me to my destination. That's the concept of a public bus. Now, when I own a car, if I own a car, what happens to that? The car is exclusively mine. So all I need to do is simple. If I want to go out, get into my car, start my car, and I move. That's what my own car does to me. My own car is not for everybody, right? So it's just for me. I hop into my car, start my car, and then I'm on my way to wherever it is I'm going to. Now, the concept of taxi is this. Taxi, it's public, no doubt. But don't forget, the way taxi works is this. I don't necessarily, I could hire a taxi. Then all I do, if I hire a taxi, I pay the man that, okay, take only me from this spot to this spot. Now, when I pay for that, take only me from this spot to this spot. What happens is that the man is not going to get more people inside the taxi. It's just going to, he will just convey me from that spot A to spot B. Now, in some cases, the man that is operating the taxi could decide that, okay, I could, I don't have, I've not gotten private customers. How about let me convey 5, 6 people together from point A to point B, and I charge them so amount of money, just like you would have in a commercial vehicle. So that's the concept of taxi. Now, bringing it down to cloud, at least this example should give us an idea of the cloud, public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. Now, public cloud, I come on AWS, for instance. I come and I rent resources and I use those resources to do whatever it is I want to do. The next person does, the third person does, the fourth person does, the fifth person does. That's the concept of public cloud. A lot of people can come, rent the resources they want to use it or do whatever it is they want to do. Perhaps maybe I want to provision the server, I use the server to do a few deployments here and there. I do that. The next man does that. The third man does that. That's the concept of public cloud. Now, accessible to everyone. That's the concept of public cloud. It's accessible to everyone. Now, the private cloud is done what? It's owned by a single person. Remember the car example I gave. The car is mine. It's not for everybody. So it's just for mine. It's just for me, rather. So I want to go out. I hop in, start the car, and go. That's the concept of a private cloud owned by a single person. Then the concept of hybrid cloud, which is, we talked about taxi. So it splits between somebody using it for private purpose and is also being used for public purpose. Now, public cloud. The cloud infrastructure is made available to general public over the internet, but also owned by a cloud provider. I think I explained that already. So that is not supposed to take much time. Is made available to general public over the internet, and then is owned by a cloud provider. Example, the AWS, the Microsoft Azure, IBM's Blue Cloud, Sun Cloud. Now, the private cloud. The cloud infrastructure is what? Is exclusively, okay, the cloud infrastructure is exclusively operated by a single organization. It can manage by the organization or a third party and may exist on-premise or off-premise. I think I've explained that in point spending so much time on that. Then the hybrid as well consists the functionality of both public and private cloud. In example, federal agencies opt for private cloud when sensitive information is involved. Also, they use the public cloud to share data sets with general public or other government departments. I've already explained that using those graphics to be able to explain the private cloud, the public cloud, as well as the hybrid cloud. Now, we're looking at the service model. So the service model, I said the service model comprises of this IaaS actually talks about infrastructure as a service, PWAS talks about platform as a service, then SWAS talks about software as a service. So which service model is actually suitable for you? However, we'll look at these things so that we'll be able to understand what it does and then how is it suitable for you. So infrastructure as a service, if your business needs a virtual machine, okay, you opt for infrastructure as a service. If your company requires platform for building software products, pick platform as a service. And if your business doesn't want to maintain any IT equipment, then choose software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Then infrastructure as a service is a cloud service that provides basic computing infrastructure. Don't forget, it's a cloud service that does what? That provides what? Basic computing infrastructure. Then services are available on pay for what you use model. Then infrastructure as a service providers include what? AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Computing Engine. Then most of the users of this sort of infrastructure as service are usually IT administrators. So don't forget, infrastructure as what? As a service is a cloud service that does what? That provides what? Basic computing infrastructure. Those are what they provide. And the services that are available, they are equally available on what? Or pay for what you use model. And so we're giving you example of what the providers are like. I'm not spend time on this. I've explained that already. So the platform as a service. Now, platform as a service provides cloud platforms and runtime environment for developing, testing, and managing application. That's what platform as a service provides. Provide cloud platforms and runtime environment for developing, for testing and managing application. So it allows software developers to do what? To deploy applications without requiring all the related infrastructure. That's what it does. And the users of platform as service are usually software developers. The software as a service. In software as a service, cloud providers host and manage the software applications on pay-as-you-go pricing model. So all software and hardware are provided and managed by a vendor. So you don't have to maintain anything. No. Okay, so software as a service. Okay, software as a service, cloud provider. Sorry, I'm actually using the internet on my phone. So my phone is about going off due to power issues. So in software as a service, cloud provider does what? They host and manage the software applications on a pay-as-you-go pricing model. So all software and hardware are provided and managed by a vendor, so you don't have to maintain anything. And who are the users of this particular kind of service model? Usually the end customers. Yeah, Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, please. I guess at this point, I might like to just take a couple of questions before my internet goes off completely. But also built by the cloud provider. I explained that.
All right.
Internet on my
sorry,
phone.
I didn't really get that.
So